Spitulnik. Where's Karleen Spitulnik? Oh, she's in the very back with the red scarf. She is our other state leader. So. All right. We'd also like to say thank you very much to all of our community partners who helped make this day possible and were able to donate all of the food and coffee and waters and everything. So all of you community leaders or community partners, thank you very much. And thank you also for partnering with Decoding Dyslexia on so many things. Okay, and to all of you today who have taken the time out of work, taken the time off of school, to make sure to be here for such an important thing, we just want to say thank you to all of you as well. We want to say thank you for just making a wonderful voice for children who are not able to come and to speak here today. We know it is a key to achieving Maryland's educational goals. Okay. We also want to point out our regional leaders, and so if we have, I know Marlise and Raylene were not able, I don't think, able to make it today, so we have, they are in Carroll County. If you are DD, Maryland Central and Northeast in Baltimore, Hartford, and Cecil, would you mind standing up, please? And that's Jackie Harris, Liz Hembling, and Tammy Karwacki has also been a huge part of that as well. Where's Tammy? Tammy is, oh, there's Tammy right here. So thank you. Then we have DD, Maryland, Eastern Shore. We do not have a leader yet, but we have lots of people out there, especially a lot of support from Fly River. DD, Maryland, Frederick, Marcy Kinsey, who is not here today, but she's looking for someone, so if you're from Frederick. DD, Maryland, Howard County, we have Barb Reidner, and we have some others who are here today who are hoping may also be able to step up and help us. And DD, Montgomery County, Alan Freeman, and Christine Bellotti. And Christine Bellotti, if you could stand up for a second. Where is Christine? Is she in the back? She's outside. Okay, she's outside. She's one of the people who was at the desk. So if you're from Montgomery County and you don't have a committee meeting or a meeting with the legislator today, you can speak to her. If you're from Baltimore and you don't have one, please speak to Jackie or Liz. And Montgomery County, so Montgomery County is Christine, and Prince George's County is Michelle Overton. And I know we have good representation back here too. Right back to Nisha. All right, so there's other people from UPG here as well. So if you guys want to get together and go to meetings, you can try to find each other. And then Michelle Neville and Marianne Tomasic is right here from Decoding Dyslexia staff. So thank you to all our regional leaders. Okay. Decoding Dyslexia is not only a Maryland state thing, but it's a national thing. We are 50 states. We have 50 states, and we also have Canadian provinces. We're also connected to England and Australia right now, so we are now an international organization. We have 5 pillars that we like to promote as our 5 main goals, our legislative goals, and that is to define dyslexia, and we would like to also add dysgraphia in there as well. Identify students at risk for reading failure through screening. Educate teachers about dyslexia, and that's through in-service or through higher education in pre-service. Support students with accommodations and assistive technology, and provide appropriate evidence-based interventions for those that need interventions. Decoding Dyslexia Maryland has 3 goals. They are to raise dyslexia awareness, inform policymakers, and empower families, and that's how we hope to make those goals, actually. Our background is that we started as a support group in Southern Maryland in 2012. We ended up going to the International Dyslexia Association later that year in October and met up with a group called Decoding Dyslexia in New Jersey. And they were there with a group from Pennsylvania, and there were some people from New York and Florida and North Carolina there. And that day, we decided we were going to make this an international or a national organization. And within a year and a half, or maybe it was 2 years, we had all 50 states. We are currently in Maryland over 500 members. Okay. And what we try to do, we'll look at the 3 different ways that we try to hit our goals. We try to raise dyslexia awareness through regional support groups, social media and outreach, through presentations, and we do presentations. We've gone to CCAP, we've been at the IDA conference, we've done a bunch of different things around at different Board of Education meetings. We've done organizational partnerships with different groups to bring in, for example, Van Cleve is a structured writing person, and he is coming down to Southern Maryland to do a presentation, and we're partnering with them. We also do awareness events around the state as well. We've been pretty active in our informed policymakers. We've been really trying to work hard at all three levels, at the federal, state, and local. We have met with members of Congress, including Lamar Alexander's office last year, before the ESEA reauthorization, and we talked about things that were pretty important to us and what we felt were pretty important issues for children who are sitting in the general education classroom that are struggling with reading, writing, and spelling, and those are a lot of our dyslexic students. So that is some of the stuff that we do. We also met with the Office of Civil Rights. We have done a lot of state work as well, working with state legislators here in Annapolis, as you are going to hopefully help us do today. Maryland State Department of Education leaders, like, as a matter of fact, Marcella Frankowski, if you wouldn't mind just raising your hand for a second, in the blue back there. She is the Assistant Secretary of Special Education and Early Intervention. So thank you very much for joining us today. And I know you have a crew with you as well, so thank you all for joining us. We participate in the Maryland Reading Coalition, which is a group of different organizations that feel that there are, and it's not just dyslexia, but there is a certain goals that we would like to see for reading in the state of Maryland, and that we participate with them in that, as well as the Right to Read Maryland group, which is over here with Barbara Donick and Dr. Walter Benson as well. We also are we're in all of the counties across the state, well, not all of the counties actually, I think there's some on the Eastern Shore we have not touched yet. But we are trying to work through all of the counties, to work with our county superintendents, to work with our school board members and inform them and educate them of some of the struggles that a lot of parents, as you all are aware, that we feel or are felt on a regular basis. Also working with county commissioners or boards or whatever your elected officials are for your county. And our last area is empower families, and that we do through a variety of ways. We have different regional support groups that meet on a monthly basis, resources available on our website, and Laura Schultz does a phenomenal job of just putting a lot of information on that website. So if there's anything you want to know about dyslexia or where to go find something about dyslexia, if you look on our website, it's there. It may not be easy to see right away, but if you look enough, you will find everything that you would want to know about dyslexia. We also have regional leaders meetings that we do on a monthly basis via telephone on a conference call. And we provide workshops for parents and teachers. And we do support through social media. And social media has been one of our big things that we really do. Our biggest thing is our Facebook page. It is a closed Facebook page for our members only, but basically we talk and we discuss what concerns someone might be having or a success that we were able to find. So we do share a lot on our Facebook page. Okay, so I will talk just to make sure we're all on the same page. We just want to talk about what is dyslexia. Dyslexia is a specific learning disability that is neurobiological in origin, which means it is of the brain. It is a disability that impacts your ability to learn. It is characterized by difficulties with accurate and or fluent word recognition and by poor spelling and decoding abilities. And there are also secondary consequences. Those include problems with reading comprehension and reduced reading experience that can impede growth, as well as calculation. And that a lot of times we see that in 3rd, 4th grade when kids start to learn multiplication tables. But what does that mean exactly? Well, dyslexia is a language-based learning disability. It has to do with language. It affects reading, writing, and spelling, and sometimes pronouncing your words. It has lifelong impact. So even if you go through remediation, you will still be a dyslexic. You will still read a little slower. You may find it more difficult to spell still for the rest of your life. But you can be remediated. Usually have difficulty with identifying separate speech sounds and with a word and or learning how letters represent the sounds. If we can go back for a second, the reason I put this stuff up here, a lot of this research, and the reason we bring this up is a lot of this research actually came out after 1992. And if you look over, that is an fMRI. It's like an MRI machine, but it's an fMRI machine. It shows movement in the brain through oxygen going through the brain to different parts that are lighting up in the brain. And in 1992, Sally Shaywitz and a few other researchers around the country started to realize that when kids are reading, if you're a fast reader, you're reading along the left side of your brain. What we have also started to see, if you are not an efficient reader, what we notice is that there's a lot more light up in the frontal part of the brain, and that usually there's action going on the right side of the brain, which is very different to an efficient left side of the brain reader. And that's where they started to see that dyslexia is no longer a theory. It's no longer a supposed disability. We now have data to show. So, neurological data. Okay, so what are the signs of being dyslexic? Often have difficulty with early articulation, learning letters and sounds, organizing written and spoken language, memorizing numbers, reading quickly enough to comprehend, keeping up with reading, comprehending longer reading assignments, spelling, foreign language, math operations. And not to say that people are not good at these things, but these are things that we typically find that students are having some difficulty with. Remembering simple sequences and understanding of rhyming words, recognizing words that begin with the same sound, pronunciation difficulties, and remembering spoken directions of names of places of people or word retrieval issues. All right, so all of those things, what is the good news? Well, the good news is we know that through large longitudinal studies by Fletcher and Reed-Lyon, that 95% of children can be taught to read at a level constrained only by their reasoning and listening comprehension abilities. 95%. All right. So what can we do for students and adults with dyslexia? What works? First of all, we know evidence-based instruction, which has been a term coined by the International Dyslexia, I'm sorry, that one's not. Evidence-based reading instruction, Orton-Gillingham-based programs, those are what we know works. And when we say Orton-Gillingham-based programs, that's not a one program. It is a style of program. It's a style of how we build up the English language. And we used to say it was a multi-sensory, repetitive, systematic, explicit. There's a very long list of things what that entails. And what the International Dyslexia Association did is they decided to take that long list of, instead of saying Orton-Gillingham, because a lot of people think that's a program, we decided to take that long list and put it into one term, and that's called structured literacy. So if you see that term structured literacy around, that is what those basic programs are that build up the English language. Okay, accommodations. This is the other thing that helps our students to show success. Accommodations are not giving them crutches to be able to do something they shouldn't be able to do. Accommodations are the process of adapting or adjusting to someone or something. It's basically leveling the playing field for students, especially those who are cognitively capable of accessing the Common Core at a level that is where they're intellectually capable of doing. We also can do this through the help of 504s and IEPs. Okay, so structured literacy, what is that? What does that mean? So structured literacy is this long list of all of these words. It's linguistic concepts, so it's language. It's systematic. It means it starts from the very beginning, the smallest part of language, which is sounds. And it's helping students to learn how to put those sounds together, how to break those sounds up before you even ever introduce letters. It's a whole bunch of little systematic ways to get students all the way up even to Latin roots and prefixes until they are proficient readers. Explicit, which means we don't just say it and expect them to do it. We show them, we actually explicitly show them how it is done, and we do it cumulatively and systematically, repetitively. It's something that happens over and over and over again as you go through learning to read. Okay, so certain programs that are evidence-based, the Barton Reading System, Wilson Language, Project Read, Alphabetic Phonics, Slingerland, Sounds and Syllables. Sounds and Syllables, and I will stop for a second, Sounds and Syllables is one of those programs that is more comprehensive for students that actually need much more intensity. Those are our hardest to remediate students that are really, they're just having a much harder time. And that is a program that's a lot more intensive and not systematic, but very multi-sensory, and so it's one of those higher level programs. Orton Gillingham, Take Flight, and Scotch Rite. Those are all programs that are structured literacy programs. Okay, and so now we know what's hard. Some of the things that we know, Brock and Bernadette Eve, okay, they are working out in California on a few different things, but one of the things that they talk about a lot is the structural trade-offs of, if you're not a left brain, really quick reader, you're not a linear speaker, there are some structural trade-offs in the brain. So when you're not utilizing the left side of the brain, the right side of the brain, if you're utilizing, enhanced a little bit more, and that's creativity, imagination, intuition, nonverbal feelings, visualization, a lot of really important things that right brain thinkers are very capable of and have just a really good sense of. All right? Okay, so when we talk about dyslexia, who are we talking about? Well, we have in our schools, we have 5.9 million children under IDEA, and those are IDEA eligible students. We talk about all of the different disabilities, and autism, intellectual disabilities, speech and language impairments, other health impairments, not including students with 504 plans, but we have learning disabilities as our largest category. That is specific learning disabilities. What we also know is that of that large blue group, we have about 81% of those students that struggle with reading, writing, and spelling. And so that is a very large population of our students with IEPs and disabilities. Okay, so our failure to read is an equity issue that affects all racial and socioeconomic groups. All right, we're going to just take a look at Park for a second. This is the scores from 2015. We would like to look at 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. The reason we talk about 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders is because those are the students that have had Common Core since they were in kindergarten. And remember, Common Core was the standards that came first. We created Common Core standards to hit all students across all states throughout the United States. And the standards are phenomenal. They are really great standards. And it is really, I truly believe in Common Core. I think it is a wonderful thing because we've got great standards that we want our children to be able to strive for and to achieve. 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders have had that since kindergarten. Now, last year was our first year of full Park assessment across the state and across the United States. We had some cases the year before that where we did samples across the country, but last year was the first year. So that being said, there is going to be a little wiggle room in here. But when we take a look at where our students fell out, we are looking at, for all of our students, we're looking at about 60% of our students that are reading below proficiency, and that's levels 1, 2, and 3 on the 5-point Park assessment. When you're looking at 504 students with 504 plans, that number jumps pretty significantly. We're looking at around 70%. And then when we look at our special education students, that's where we really see the dramatic drop. We see they are about 95%, 94% of our students right now are not able to read at proficiency. And the part that's hard to understand is that, when we have a longitudinal study that says 95% of our students can read, and then we see that 91% of them are not reading, that's where we know we've definitely got an issue, and we need to figure out how do we solve this issue. And so that's why we're working with the Maryland State Board of Education, and everyone else across the state. We have the task force that we're working with, and we are looking at those numbers. And we'll take a look. The next one. Yep. So when we also decided, we were going to talk about create Decoding Dyslexia Maryland, we in the state of Maryland did not necessarily want to do what the other states have done. They are really concerned about, kids with dyslexia. In the state of Maryland, we decided we wanted to take a different approach because we know that it's not just our dyslexic children who are struggling. As you can see, it's a lot of our children who are struggling, our socioeconomically disadvantaged students, and that's what we call our SEEDS. So I will start with who they are, our SEEDS kids. They are struggling readers and learners from all social groups. They're economically disadvantaged youngsters. They're English language learners, students with dyslexia, specific learning disabilities, and specific language impairment students. So we kind of hit the gamut on who we are, when we talk about Decoding Dyslexia Maryland, who do we represent, whose voice are we here to talk about? It is our SEEDS kids. So we have a banner over there if you want to take a look at it later and just remember who our SEEDS students are, but those are our SEEDS students. And the reason why is those statistics from TARP, because we know, especially if you have a dyslexic child, and if you are a tutor, you see those students on a regular basis, and those are the students who can do better. So here are some of the other statistics. 59.9% of Maryland 5th graders are reading below proficient. 79% of Maryland 4th grade low-income students read below proficient. 98% of 4th grade Maryland ELL read below proficient. The prevalence of dyslexia is 11 to 17% of the population, with only 5% identified. 91% of 4th grade students with disabilities in Maryland read below proficient. And 80% of SLD students are dyslexic. So those are just some important statistics that we want to make sure you have. Sure. Senator Pinsky. Senator Pinsky, welcome.
Thank you.
And Senator Pinsky is our senator from Prince George's County. So if you want
to first of all, thank you for coming down here and for all you do, taking the time out to come down, lobby, educate others, and educate yourselves about the legislative process is a very worthy endeavor, so thank you. I have to say, my first introduction to dyslexia was probably about 40 years ago. I had to take a reading course, when I started my teaching career. And I'll always remember the teacher, professor, I can't remember, showed a video. And the video or the movie was what reading looks like to a dyslexic child. And it showed jumbled letters moving, and reversals, and everything else, and it was done, and they had a voice of a child, and it was, and again, looking back now, it probably wouldn't be high quality, but I have to tell you, it left a lasting impression on me. It was my introduction, and reading was a requirement in Prince George's County, where I started my teaching career.
Me too.
I hear me too. That's like an amen. So it remains a problem, reading, for decoding, whether it's moving letters or kids not even hearing instructions and being able to follow those instructions and putting the words on the paper and rhyming, whatever it might be, are continuous problems that affect us. And so we try to be aware of the problems. We have a State Department of Education and obviously 24 jurisdictions that are moving, some quickly, some more slowly, and those that are moving more quickly are probably because of your work in your respective counties or city. So, first of all, thank you to keep people aware and educated of the challenges that children with dyslexia face, and other children who have difficulties achieving reading mastery who might not have dyslexia. Here in Annapolis, we're working on a number of fronts, which incorporates this issue. But I guess 2 or 3 years ago, we passed a bill called 740 on education to do a number of things. But one was for those students who are advanced, and obviously students with dyslexia, some have high-level skills. We actually expanded and created dual enrollment where more and more young people in high school can take community college courses at the same time. At the same token, there are many students who aren't able to go on to higher education, and obviously the workforce, who need remediation, which we found the more remediation they need, the less likely they are to pursue and complete, for example, a 2-year college. So in the state of Maryland, this year or next year, we're starting transition courses to find those students by the end of their junior year who are behind, particularly in math and reading, which obviously has particular import for you, to give them some extra boost in their senior year, so hopefully they can make that next step without lots of bumps and bruises and remediation. Another issue that we're always facing, and which affects whatever community you're with, whether it's people delayed in reading, and dyslexia, or disability in general, or general education, is funding. That remains a concern and a problem in the state. The resources are somewhat limited. There's less of a willingness to raise new revenue among some, not with me. I think there are some areas we can tap for more revenue. There are a lot of people who are doing very well in our state who I think are not paying their fair share. We're going to be re-looking at Thornton Commission, which is the formula that drives education funding, probably next year, which could affect funding for the next 10, 20, or 30 years across the state, where it's equitable and hopefully adequate. And that's a big question: what is adequate funding to have quality education system and ensure all of our children can learn? So there are a number of issues, and one other, just let me mention, one problem we have, and I think it affects the teaching of reading, is teacher turnover. You know, in our state, not different from any other state, for a brand new teacher, 5 years later, anywhere between 30 and 50% of those teachers are gone. In high needs areas, it's closer to 50%. So if 500 new teachers start in 2016, but 2021, half of those have left. And that's a problem in many ways. One, stability for our children, having the same people they can rely on, know well. But it's also expensive, because every time you lose a teacher, you have HR costs, recruitment, retraining, and it's a cost, some say, as much as $40,000 or $50,000 every time a teacher leaves. And that's lost money, which can be used on small classes for reading or one-on-ones with children who might have dyslexia. So we also have legislation, I have legislation, which hopefully we'll vote on today, to try to retain our new teachers, give them extra supports early on in the first year or two, because that's when people are sort of treading water. It's very difficult coming into the profession, because there are a lot of things you need to learn. Like I learned in my first year, when students are integrated, whether it's general ed or with disabilities, understanding what those problems are children face. Again, whether it's reading, whether it's emotional, whether it's physical, as well as the normal course events of having your groups of lower level reading or mid-level reading or upper level reading or whatever it is, whether it's physics or chemistry. So there's a lot of challenges. It's difficult. And I've had a conversation with a friend. We used to talk about, is teaching an art or a science? And I believe the answer is both. It's both an art and a science. I mean, there are some clear best practices. There is science behind it, but there's also an artistic side of it too. So it's a challenge. I'm glad you're here to keep people in the correct direction, to educate them, to keep voicing the importance of better knowledge of dyslexia, of various approaches to reading. I understand, phonics is a problem for children with dyslexia, and some variation on a whole language or a lot of other strategies. And a lot of school systems might be 10, 20, or 30 years behind us and not looking forward. So having your voice join your mix is very important to us. I'm glad you're here. Please get a feeling for Annapolis, how things happen or don't happen. About 1,500 bills get introduced each year. About a third pass. Many of those that pass are just 2 or 3 word changes. The real big game changers are few and far between, and unfortunately, sometimes it takes a couple of years. I've had a number of bills that took 2 or 3 years to pass. I'm still working on one 14 years later. So don't give up hope. Keep the struggle up. Keep educating others. Please continue to do what you're doing. Thank you.
And on that note, if you have, we are going to be a free-flowing event today, so if you have a legislative meeting at any point, please do not feel free to get up and walk out as you need to and come back in. And if you feel brave enough to come up and get coffee and stuff too while we're all talking, you're free. But anyway, so I want to just finish on our Decoding Dyslexia. That is Decoding Dyslexia. If you have any questions about anything that we talked about, and if you have any interest in becoming more involved as a state leader, I know there are a lot of families that say thank you all the time for all of the different things that we do. But if you would like to become involved and help us to make some change in the state of Maryland, then we would love to, absolutely love to have you and to have you all become a part, even a stronger force, help us become a stronger force. Okay. The next thing I'd like to do is introduce 2 very special people, Liz Hembling and Mia Hembling. If you'd like to come on up. Mia is, and she will tell you, she's a proud dyslexic, and she has written a phenomenal poem about her journey, and she has had a journey, and so I will let them come up and just share. Mia, come up and share.
When people say I can't read, dyslexia. When I don't know certain words, I know this is dyslexia. When I think all is lost for me, when my hopes of perfect reading are crushed, dyslexia. Then I thought it was awful, but not anymore. When you can remember things easily, dyslexia. When you meet other people like you, when you realize you can do it too, dyslexia. Then you felt paranoid about your issues, when you finally say, I don't care what you think, dyslexia. The times you got frustrated trying to read something, when teachers call you stupid, dyslexia. When I can be a problem solver, when I think I have the guts to try to read it again. Then I thought I couldn't, but now I can. Now I can conquer dyslexia. But I am finally proud to be a dyslexic. I am Mia, and I have dyslexia.
Awesome, thank you so much. And for any of you that are dyslexic in this room, you know that the more stress you have, the harder that kind of an easy thing can be. So well done, wonderful job. And I think now we have, yeah. Oh, okay, now I would like to introduce a very special visitor today. She's from the Center for Effective Reading Instruction. I'm really horrible with acronyms, so sorry. Center for Reading Instruction, Effective Reading Instruction. Liz, come on up. She's our keynote speaker, and she's going to explain what the center is and what it is planning to do.
Thank you, Lisa. some PowerPoint, but I think I'm just going to just talk to you in general because I think that Lisa gave you quite an overview. In fact, I felt like I was at an IDA conference with those images of the brain. So if any of you have come to an IDA conference, you've probably recognized many of those images and the researchers that she mentioned. The Center for Effective Reading Instruction is a newly created subsidiary of the International Dyslexia Association. So we are so new that our website is not yet up, but it should be in about a week. And the reason that we created this subsidiary is so that we could focus our efforts on effective reading instruction. And the nucleus of our work is a document called the Knowledge and Practice Standards for Teachers of Reading. That was created in about 2010. And if you have a chance, right now you can download this document. I can show you. It's rather weighty. It's about 38 pages. So we can, we believe that teaching reading effectively is, requires a deep and comprehensive knowledge base. So if you download this document, you'll see 6 sections talking about phonemic awareness, phonics, morphology, semantics, orthography. So we believe that Lisa called it structured literacy. That is the term that we embrace to talk about the fact that teachers need a thorough grounding in the structure of language in order to teach reading effectively. So if you go to the IDA website, it's eida.org. Look under Knowledge and Practice Standards. So this was a document created by IDA. The Center for Effective Reading Instruction will also have that on its website, which is going to be effectivereading.org. So you'll be able to download. It's the same document. It's just there's different commentary whether you're working specifically with dyslexic learners or the range of struggling readers. And that's one thing I wanted to point out, that we wanted to focus not just on dyslexia, but also effective reading for the range of struggling readers. That includes English language learners, it includes students with other learning disabilities, it includes students who come from low-income settings. That doesn't guarantee that they're going to have a problem, but it sometimes puts them at risk for delayed language acquisition. So I wanted to frame my remarks just by providing some context, some history. We think about, I know 15 years ago in education seems a long time ago, but we had a very important document then, a body of research, the National Reading Panel, that came out. And they did a very thorough analysis of all of the existing research to that date on what constitutes effective reading acquisition. And it wasn't just for struggling readers, it was for all readers. And so many of you obviously know that they came out with their recommendation. We call it the Big Five: phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, comprehension, as the skills that were required are necessary for students to become successful readers. Now, in the panel's recommendations, they talk about the need for having highly qualified teachers. However, they fell short of saying, what does that look like? And so they felt that they had done a lot of work, which they had, but that was not addressed. And so we feel that at IDA and the center, that mandate was sort of taken up by the creation of this Knowledge and Practice Standards document, in which we outline all of those the skills that we believe are necessary. It seems that now we've sort of lost sight of that goal. We're on to the next big idea, which is Common Core, which is wonderful. It's a wonderful accomplishment and a great document, but it starts to focus on college and career readiness, and we seem to have forgotten about the foundational reading skills, or there's a danger that we may forget. And we still, as we know, have many struggling readers in the classroom. So not just students with dyslexia, but the others that were mentioned, children from high poverty situations, English language learners. I would say that those two categories make up an even larger percentage of the students who are struggling. So the common, for us, the common issue is teacher training. That's both the challenge and the opportunity. And so that's what I want to say to you today. This is a big challenge, and I really applaud the work of Decoding Dyslexia, the Maryland Right to Read, because we can't do it alone. IDA is a small nonprofit. Your voices are really important. And so I think we need to take this message to the legislators and have them really understand the importance of effective teacher training. I want to turn now to telling you about the work that we are doing at the Center for Effective Reading Instruction. It started 5 years ago at IDA, and the first thing that they did when the IDA Knowledge and Practice Standards was published, their real interest was changing how teachers were initially trained in teacher preparation programs in higher education, with the idea that we kept hearing over and over from teachers that they never got this instruction when they were, this kind of knowledge when they were in schools of education. And so that was where we started our efforts. We started in 2012. We invited schools of education around the country to have us look at their reading curriculum. We didn't get many takers. We had about 9 programs that we identified that were willing to have their program looked at. And this was voluntary. It was a collaborative effort. And so we started with these 9 programs. If you look at the IDA website, you'll see the programs that we have reviewed and accredited. That was followed in 2014 by the second round of reviews. We added about 8 programs in that round. And we are currently reviewing 12 more university programs. So if you're doing the math, that's not even going to be 30 programs across the country. There are about 800 schools of education around the country. So we have a lot of work to do. So that's the one really big important effort, I think, is raising awareness and change in higher education. In some cases, that's going to require that faculty are retrained to be able to provide this kind of knowledge and content to teachers in training. So that's the one big effort that we've been doing ongoing. And the second part of that effort is to create a certification for teachers. So we wanted to use the IDA standards, the knowledge base there, to put out this certification that signals to a school district that this teacher has the knowledge base that is embodied in the IDA Knowledge and Practice Standards. And there are going to be different levels. The exam will be available later this month. So that is sort of our next big effort, is to try to get as many teachers to be aware and to take this exam and to become certified. So the more we can talk structured literacy, the more we can get the training to teachers, both when they're pre-service and then in service. That will go a long way towards addressing some of the challenges that Lisa raised. So again, I want to applaud everybody for being here, for talking not only about dyslexia, which is critically important, but for really talking about effective instruction that's going to make life better for all students. Certainly with students with dyslexia, they absolutely need this kind of structured approach to teaching reading. But we also have other struggling readers in the classroom, and that's sort of the broader message. Again, I want to close by saying, there are a lot of, I would like to say opportunities, there are challenges, because we are talking about systemic change. We're talking about changing higher education. We're talking about changing the in-service teacher training, and so we have a lot of work ahead of us. But the more we can raise awareness about the issues, the further along we will get. So I want to thank you for inviting me to talk about the issue, and encourage you to continue to work with legislators and if you're teachers, educators, to raise these issues in your schools. So thank you very much.
And we look forward to seeing the 3 certification levels and are really excited about that, these opportunities, so thank you. Our next speaker is Dr. Joan Mele-McCarthy. Let me just make sure I'm on the right, yep. She is on the legislative task force to study the implementation of dyslexia education program. She's also the head of the Summit School in Edgewater, Maryland as well.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. The first thing I'd like to do is I'd like everybody to give a round of applause to the students that are here. Would all the students in the audience So here's the thing. The thing is, we're here because of you, because of students across our state who struggle with reading. And when the task force was established by legislation, I was thrilled and amazed that specific attention is being given to this thing that we call dyslexia, which is a specific type of reading disability, reading disorder, learning difference. There's not been a lot of focused attention, not just legislatively, but educationally, on the specific components of dyslexia. And so I see this task force as having the huge, huge impact on helping people understand that dyslexia is a learning difference that can be managed with specific structured literacy instruction that comes from the research, that is implemented in a way that has fidelity and consistency and frequency. And we have students in this room who are bound for mainstream high schools, who are bound for college, and we have students who are very successful because of the foundation in reading and writing that they have been able to receive. But here's the other thing. We want all students to have the privilege of receiving instruction from teachers who are trained in the way that they need to be trained. Teachers want the information. Teachers want to be that person to help that student. And for my money, that's what I see as the focus and the purpose and the importance of this task force. So I applaud you guys, the students, because it's because of you that we're here and we're so passionate about what we do. So with this task force, and I want to thank the governor for appointing all of us to this task force, and I was certainly surprised when I got the call and said, would you be on it, and then would you chair it? And I went, whoa, okay, okay, we'll do this. But the next group of people I'd like to have a round of applause for are people who are on the task force. There are many sitting in the audience. So if you're on the task force, would you please stand and be recognized? So this is not the first task force that I've served on. I was in the federal government in the U.S. Department of Education and served on a bunch of different kinds of president commissions and things, but I have to tell you that this group of dedicated and smart people are going to make a difference for children in this state who struggle with reading. So I applaud you, your work, your intelligence, your passion, because we are going to help the state make this difference that we were charged to do. So let's see, I have a list here of things I want to talk to you about. Let me tell you what the charges are, the specific charges for this legislation. The first one is to determine current practices for identifying and treating students with dyslexia in Maryland and other states. We also want to determine the appropriate structure for establishing a dyslexia education program and make recommendations for that. We want to look at the feasibility of funding a dyslexia education program through the State Department of Education for alternate funding mechanisms or both. We want to look at methodologies that should be used to assess students and identify dyslexia and what we're calling pre-dyslexia conditions. In other words, too many kids reach 3rd and 4th grade, and all of a sudden people say, well, they can't read. Or parents are told, well, we can't test for dyslexia until the child fails at reading. Well, I'm here to tell you, as a clinician, I'm a speech pathologist by training, as a parent, I have this wonderful adult son who is an engineer who has dyslexia, and also as someone who knows the research and helps to translate the research to practice for teachers and parents, that we know that we can identify children at risk for dyslexia in the preschool years. We don't have to wait till they fail. And in fact, if we wait till they fail, that does the children, the students, a big disservice. So that's another one of our charges. We also are looking at the best practices for treating and educating students identified as having dyslexia or pre-dyslexia, the structured literacy approaches. What are the practices, the sum total of practices that really make a difference for students? And these practices can be implemented in every school, in every county, in the state, and not only the state, but across our country. And then also to develop a pilot program to initiate the implementation of the recommendations of the task force. So all of the information that we gather, we're going to say, okay, these are the things we think need to be the components of a pilot program, small scale, that we will try out in a couple of school districts so that we can see what the outcomes are and then hopefully scale it up to all schools across the state. How did we do this? So we spent an intensive fall learning. So we called in experts from across the country. And the experts talked to us about the neurobiology of dyslexia, the kinds of brain imaging and brain information that Lisa told you about. We had experts that talked about evidence-based practices with learning differences in dyslexia. We had experts that talked to us about English language learners, children who do not speak English as a first language or their primary language, but yet how to determine whether or not their struggle with reading is because of their second language or because they truly have dyslexia, and we do have the science and the knowledge to make that determination. We also talked about children in poverty and how the poor language and literacy stimulation in the early years really take away from literacy instruction. However, we can also determine through certain kinds of assessment which children meet the language development and which children have the neurobiological origins of dyslexia. We know this information. It's time that everybody across the state and across this country knows that information. We also had a couple of experts come in and talk to us about setting up programs. How do you set up a pilot program? What are the components of setting up a good pilot program? So the task force spent a lot of time learning and then talking and discussing. And then we went into our subgroups, our work groups, and took the information that we learned as well as we engaged in additional research to say, what are the things that we think are going to be the best for children who struggle with reading in this way in the state of Maryland. So we were charged in August to do this job, and originally our report was due at the end of December. So I'm a pretty calm person, but kind of sort of knew the magnitude of this, and so we did ask for an extension, so we have an extension for a year to do this work. The most important part of this work, I can't even say the most important, but the culmination of this work is to thoughtfully and to very intelligently develop a pilot program that has teeth and can make a difference. So we're at the point now where we're writing components of the report, and we're heading into looking at and talking about this development of the pilot program. So our work has been intense. It's been pretty rewarding. It's been kind of fun, I think. I've had fun. But it will be ongoing for the next few months, and I just welcome your support. I just want to say one more thing, we also had parents and experts come in and provide public testimony. So there's a lot of information that we're using to help us with this test. So I thank you for your support. I thank you for being here. I am in awe of the kids because they manage their dyslexia every day, and they triumph over what people think they might not be able to, but they can because they're smart. So I thank you, students, and I thank all of the people in this room, because any good legislation that has to improve the lives of people has come from grassroots effort. That's how 94-142, the special ed law, came into play. It was dedicated people that really came together, and it was a groundswell. And Margaret Mead said, just think, it just takes, and I'm not quoting her exactly, but any good movement comes from one or a small group of people saying that something has to change. So that's what you're doing here. You're saying something has to change, and we appreciate it, and I look forward to this continued work.
So in case you're wondering what that noise is, it's they're calling session, they're calling for a vote, so that's not the fire alarm or anything else that you have to worry about. And there it is again. Also, just wanted to say one thing. One of our asks is in regard to our extension. That is one of the asks that you will find on our paper that we're asking to, technically we have until June right now, but we're asking that it gets extended till December and June of next year. Well, December of this year and June of next year. June of next year. So that we do not have to rush and we do not have to leave out any critical components. It is very time consuming, especially when you're dealing with professionals who are working on a regular basis. So that is one of our asks. We do have a really quick presentation to make. Is Lisa Joan? Is it Joan? Lisa Harris Jones. If she can come up, and Brad Peganoff there. Brad's not here. Okay, Lisa's here. Come on up. All right.
Well, my name is Karleen Spitulnik, and Decoding Dyslexia of Maryland would like to recognize the outstanding efforts of several individuals whose advocacy helped catapult us to where we are in Maryland today with respect to dyslexia. I've been involved with Decoding Dyslexia for just a little over a year, and the progress that has been made and the momentum that has been building, I find astonishing. I think it's fair to say, though, that the seed of this momentum was two bills that were introduced concurrently last year during the legislative session. That was the Senate Bill 15 and House Bill 278. That is the task force bill. They passed the assembly, they were signed into law, and I was supposed to go before Joan, but, and then last September, 14 people started working on reviewing current research and looking at the best ways to identify kids who struggle with reading, writing, and spelling. So we would like to recognize and thank Lisa Harris Jones. This is not Lisa Harris Jones. This is Karleen McDonough. She works with Lisa Harris Jones, and she actually drafted the original bill. But we would like to thank them for coming up with this task force bill. We think Lisa had the wisdom not to force through legislation, but instead to propose a task force so that educators could collaborate and develop the best possible pilot program that will demonstrate how all students can learn to read when taught using appropriate structured literacy. We would also like to recognize the Odyssey School for their testimony. Lisa Harris Jones' son goes to Odyssey, and he actually came and testified as well. So Caitlin, you work closely with Lisa Harris Jones, and we'd like to give you this plaque and thank you for the work that you've done.
We would like to introduce our next speaker, and that is Betty Weller, who is the president of MSEA, which is the Maryland State Teachers Association. And she is going to talk about basically how teachers and parents are working together on this subject. Thank you so much.
So, I'm used to a podium and there isn't one. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for asking me to be part of your advocacy day. I am the president of the Maryland State Education Association. We represent 71,000 educators across the state of Maryland who work every day in our public schools to educate about 846,000 students and to prepare them for success in the classroom and in their life beyond. We have 39 affiliates around the state, in every county, and our parent affiliate is the National Education Association, which is about 3 million members strong across the country. And we work closely in counties. We're trying to. One of the things I do on a monthly basis is I meet with the state PTA president, because parents are very important, integral parts of a child's education, and we think it is a perfect union. Before becoming an officer in the Maryland State Education Association, I was a local president in Kent County and a science and English teacher for the Kent County Public School System. And I think I can say with confidence that in Annapolis, MSEA is probably one of the most effective advocacy groups there is. We advocate on behalf of our students and our educators all the time. In fact, I just came from a hearing in Budget and Taxation to testify in favor of a bill to establish a Thornton II Commission. Those of you that are familiar with Thornton, the Thornton Commission, you know it was, thank you. It was a commission that was established in around 2000, that looked at adequacy and equitable funding in the state of Maryland. And in 2002, there was a bill that established funding formulas for Maryland public schools. Of course, that was 14 years ago, and now the formulas are outdated, so we are supporting looking at those formulas and bringing them up to date. Our legislative priorities this year actually include some common sense recommendations around less testing and more learning. Some of you know that we are inundated with standardized testing to the point where students are no longer getting a well-rounded education. They are having courses cut out so that they can do testing, practice for the practice testing. Computer labs are shut down for months at a time for testing. And so we have several bills in, one to put a 2% cap on the amount of instructional time that can be used for mandated testing, standardized testing. One that would be, it's a transparency bill so that school systems inform parents of the tests that are given and what the purpose of the test is, and there are some others. So we hope while you're up there advocating for your task force bill that you will also advocate for some of our education testing legislation. We are in supportive of the extension of the task force to study the implementation of the dyslexia education program, and we've been supportive of the task force all along. While working with Decoding Dyslexia, I spent 32 years in the 7th grade, and I never saw a student that I could point out as having dyslexia, because nobody ever taught me how to do that. So, in meeting with the Decoding Dyslexia people, I'm learning a lot about, as an English teacher, I know the importance of good reading, and so I'm learning a lot more about the importance of quality reading instruction and pre-service programs for educators. Recent research will tell you that if children don't get off to a good start in reading, they're never going to catch up. And so it's critical that we make sure that happens. And the best solution for that is early identification, not 3rd grade, not 5th grade. Pre-K, kindergarten, 1st grade. The skill that matters most to the success of children is reading, and they are in grave academic danger if they fall behind. Just so you know what our parent organization says about reading. It says, there is no one way to teach reading that is effective for all students. The teacher is the key to successful reading. Teachers should receive a sound pre-service education as well as ongoing relevant professional development in order to implement complete reading programs that address the full spectrum of reading skills and diverse student needs. Teachers should be supported by parents, skilled education support professionals, communities that value and promote reading, and policies that provide adequate resources and allow them to use their expertise. So we want to work with you as partners to ensure that our teachers have the skills they need and the supports and the resources to meet the diverse student needs and to teach all of our students to read. To that end, after meeting with the Decoding Dyslexia folks, I did have some conversations with some folks in higher education. So I've started conversations about perhaps altering pre-service programs that they do for teachers to maybe include some strategies that work for all students, not just dyslexic students. And I have monthly meetings with the state superintendent, the interim state superintendent. I have a meeting with him tomorrow, and that is on my agenda to discuss again. So I think partnering with this group and talking to a lot of people, we're going to be able to make some great inroads in reading strategies that help all of our students. So thank you very much, and enjoy the day.
We have this partnership. We now would like to introduce, we would now like to introduce another wonderful visitor today, or speaker, and that's Marcella Frankowski, who is our Maryland State Department of Education Assistant Superintendent of Special Education and, you told me earlier, instruction? No. Early intervention.
I think the first sign you saw is that both people in education speaking to you today are on the same color. Okay, so I'd like to say that we're at least on the same page, so that's a very good thing. I'd like to say good morning to all of you, and it's a privilege and an honor to be in this room with partners and advocates focused on one voice and one vision to the work that we have in front of us. And it's never been an easy message, or we've never taken the low road or the high road in looking at this work, but surely can recognize the challenges ahead of us and the partnership and the collaboration together. My background is very interesting and has a little history to it, in that I've been in special education and early intervention my entire career, my professional career. Most of my time, over 29 years, was with the Baltimore County public school system, where my experience is birth through 21. It is a diagnostic prescriptive teacher, it is a reading specialist, it is an IEP chair, assistant principal, principal, director of special education, etc. So my life, my passion is to narrow the gap for students with disabilities. You know, we are looking at that very seriously at the State Department of Education, looking at how we, in collaboration, can work on this work. Today, I think in looking at this group, the advocacy, the passion, the power here is critical to this work and puts us in the same place. I've actually asked one of our, in looking at our reading work, I think a common theme that I've heard today is that it is not, and it should not, be seen only in the arena or the world in special education. But all means all, and our support, our training, our identification, our implementation is truly through the lens of general education and special education. So today, Miss Ava Spencer is with me. Ava, would you please stand? I bring to her, would you applaud her with me? So I bring her with me, or I come with her as a partner. And I want you to see that this is general education. Ava is the supervisor for English language arts and literacy at the State Department. And then I, as the special education and early intervention superintendent, assistant superintendent, truly partner together to look at this work. And we look at this work not as an end, but as a beginning, a middle, and an end. So it really starts in the identification, the eligibility, the implementation, and then the reevaluation to continue that cycle to look at the strength and the power of our work. We recognize the power of a fluent reader as one that opens the doors, and it's really a pathway for learning. If you're not reading, you're not actively engaged in the reading process. We also look at reading as providing experiences through words. You know, we can live through travel, we can live through experiences and foreign experiences through the reading process. And then most importantly, reading creates an independency, doesn't it? It creates that independent learner, and it creates that independent citizen in life. So reading is the foundation and the work that we have in front of us, and I truly feel that we have been given a call to action. You know, we have the awareness, we have the dialogue, it is now time with a call to action. There's been some considerable things that we've done that really have shaped the work and really talk about our call to action. And I think something that I'd like a takeaway for all of us is that this is not only at the local level or the state level, but this work has a lens both at the national, the state, and the local level. And this is where that partnership and that collaboration is what will allow us to respond to a call to action. So as Joan shared earlier this morning, very excited about legislation that occurred last year for our task force, and this is both in the identification as well as best practices for supporting all learners, all needs of our learners, including those learners with concerns around dyslexia, dysgraphia, and dyscalculia. As you know, I'm a member of that, so MSD is represented, and we are looking at the full continuum, not only at the local level, but I think Betty's point very well said, also our institutes of higher ed. Are our teachers prepared in the field currently, and are they prepared coming into our field in this area of need? So very excited about this work. On October the 23rd, in 2015, all states received a federal guidance letter, I call them. They're called Dear Colleague letters. They come from the federal government, and they go to every state across the nation, and they really give a lens of expectation and clarification and guidance of the work. In this October Dear Colleague letter, the states received clear guidance about the use of the term dyslexia, dyscalculia, and dysgraphia, and our vision and our work on this. So immediately, the Maryland State Department of Education went into action mode and shared this Dear Colleague letter. It is posted on our website at Maryland Learning Links. And the State Department, we shared with our assistant superintendents of instruction and general education, with the directors of special education, with our education advocacy coalition, with my advisory councils, and we truly are unpacking this federal guidance to ensure that Maryland is aligned and that Maryland will be supporting all student challenges, including our students with dyslexia. So very excited about that work. So we're looking at the evaluation of dyslexia, the identification and determination of dyslexia, and then best practices for meeting the needs of our learners. So excited about that. Then in December of 2015, we have the Every Student Succeeds Act. You may hear that referred to as ESSA. It is every state in our nation creates an accountability, a way to ensure that we are making a difference in the lives of children and families. For the first time, this act has authorized a comprehensive literacy center that will support students who are struggling to learn literacy skills due to a disability. So again, this is a national lens that truly focuses on our work and gives us a call to action. And then most recently, in January of 2016, the President signed into law the READ Act, R-E-A-D Act, allocating no less than $2.5 million per year through 2017, from 2017 through 2021 for research on the science of dyslexia. This truly will drive us in our work. The research will be focused on earlier identification. We've heard that in multiple themes today. The earlier the better, we know that, for all children, including children with dyslexia. Professional development for educators, and for curriculum development to help students with dyslexia. So that sounds like quite in alignment with our state work and our national work, and again, that collaboration will drive us all. In Maryland, we are responding, as I shared with you, to the Dear Colleague letter, to this work. We are in action mode. We have considered where it is appropriate to use in the term through the IEP team process. We have reviewed our state and local policies, written policies and procedures, and there's no prohibition to use the term dysgraphia, dyscalculia, and dyslexia through the IEP team process, and especially we want to use this word not as a term or as a label, but one that drives instructional decision making. That's the importance. So it's not the label, while we will not steer away from that through the IEP team process. The term, the use of it, is to truly drive what type of program we need to implement to ensure that we are maximizing the potential of every learner. So very excited about our drive to this. I just want you to be very clear. I heard some messaging here today, but please know that all children with dyslexia or dysgraphia or dyscalculia are not in need of special education or related services. Okay? So while we do not, there are 13 handicapping codes or primary codes that when we look at our children with disabilities, specific learning disability is a code that is used. However, the work, the effort, very specifically, we will look at dyslexia, dyscalculia, and dysgraphia, and our reading disabilities as we begin to shape what strategies, what we need to do to ensure the best educational program for every child. We also are preparing, and many of you have been involved in this process with us, a guidance document and a technical assistance bulletin that will come out through general ed and special ed to all of our IEP teams, all of our local school teams, our principals, our educators, looking at our use and eligibility, our implementation of best practices and strategies, and our evaluation for success. I can share with you that while we are preparing this technical assistance bulletin, we're also going to have a lens on the recommendations, the proposed recommendations from your task force. So we will begin the guidance document, we will begin our work, but it will continuously be shaped as we work with all partners across the state and as we look at the recommendations from the task force. So in conclusion, it is a collaborative approach. We do not ever want to approach a child, the work, a program through a silo or through the work. And I leave you with that we know, there's no question that we know, the earlier the intervention, the better. And we also know the power of a positive relationship between a school and a family. Do you know the number one predictor of student success is the positive relationship between a family and a school. Family is the first teacher, remains the first teacher. I'm kind of old. I think I have children, but I don't. I have men. I continue to be called. I continue to be their teacher. So we truly know early intervention the better. We know the power of positive school and family relationships to support and maximize student success. And MSD today and continuing tomorrow and forever will be advocates in your world, partners in your work, and see you as a voice to make the difference each and every day. The most important life that we have in this world. And what is that? The life and the learning of the child and their family. Thank you very much for having me.
especially on the guidance and everything else. So one of the things that we just want you to take away from today after hearing our speakers, and we are going to explain a little bit more before we go, is that we just want you to understand that we are really trying to work collaboratively in the state of Maryland, and this is a little different than it is in other states, as you might see. We really are trying to work collaboratively with the teachers union, with the Maryland State Department of Education, with all partners in the education arena. Higher education, the Board of Education, those are where we are trying to make our collaboration, make our connections, and explain why. What do we want them to know? We want them to know the research that is out there. We want them to understand, and let's see if we can find that path. What is the way to improve education in the state of Maryland? Right now, in order for you to be able to go and speak to legislators and possibly know what to say, in case you're wondering, oh, what do I say to a legislator? Even if you don't make your appointments today, if you make them next week, next month, next year, whatever, we would like to equip you with some information on how to speak to legislators. And then we're going to tell you just a little quick review about our asks, and that is in your folder. All of that information is in your folder, but right now, if we could get Karleen, where's Karleen? If you could come on up and share. And Laura, do you want to come over now? Yes. Okay.
Well, while she's getting the slides up, I'd first like to thank you all for coming here, and I'm going to talk about tips for talking to legislators. Sorry, lost my train of thought here, but we want to thank you for coming here, mainly because, you know, you're actually doing something to make change. I think a lot of people sit at home and complain about things, but you guys are actually here and doing something. So just to give you a lay of the land, you are now in the House office building, so if you're going to see a delegate, they'll be upstairs in one of the rooms. If you're going to see a senator, they'll be across the street. I think it's called the James Senate office building, so you'll have to go through security and to go see them. But some tips: be on time. These legislators work very hard during the session, and you know, time is precious. Know your topic and be friendly. You're here to educate them. These are these legislators. They work, you know, other jobs during the year. They're like a citizen legislature. They don't have tons of staff, so they need us to inform them. So be positive, be friendly, don't be argumentative, but know your topic and stick with it because time is precious. Please take notes when you're visiting with them. That way you can follow up with thank you notes, and you can also keep track of information that they need that you don't have. It's okay if you don't know everything, but get back to them, and taking notes is one way to be able to do that. It's good to open your discussion by framing the issue. So I'm here to talk about dyslexia. I'm here to talk about the kids that struggle to read in school, and the fact that schools aren't able to teach them because the teachers aren't trained properly, something like that. And then support your position, and tell your story, and suggest that this is just good policy. We can't have 50% of our students not able to read in this country. And then, again, tell your story, and so that they can have something that they can grab onto. So it's also good when you're talking with legislators. I guess there are some people here, the county leaders, who have signs. I think I have a Baltimore County one somewhere. It's good to go as a group. So if you can find people in your county. I think we all have lanyards, and the lanyard, depending on your county, have little stickers on them so you can help find each other. So introduce everyone. Generally, the delegates and senators want to know that a constituent is there in front of them. Tell your 2-minute story. Unfortunately, you don't have time to go on and on. In first grade this happened, in second grade this happened. So you're going to have to condense it a little bit. If your children are with you, it's good if they can add something to the story. We have been told that, you know, they don't always believe us adults, but kids tell it like it is. So they can be their biggest advocates. You know, explain what's going on with the current system, that our kids are getting left behind and they're not learning how to read. It's also good to tell them what needs to be done. You can lead them along the path that we need structured literacy. Teachers need to be trained better. You know, give them an idea of what we need to do. And then Laura will talk about the asks. And there's a sheet in your folder, and she'll get into that. Before you leave, make sure that you thank them. Make sure that you leave a packet. We have legislator packets. And if you can, take a picture with the legislator and tweet it or share it on Facebook. I think I had one more slide, right? Yes. We would like to know what happens in your meeting. It's helpful for us to, you know, if there are questions that we need to follow up with, if we can help you answer any questions that your legislators might have. And then please be sure to write them a thank you note. That way they can remember who you are. And if you're meeting with a staff member, it's perfectly fine to meet with the staff member and not the legislator, because they will pass the information on. But you can write the letter to the legislator and just CC the staff member. And it is also okay to email the letters. And there is a thank you note template on our website, so you can use that to get started. I think that's about it. And Laura will fill in everything that I missed.
You didn't miss much. I'm Laura Schultz, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the asks in your folder. There is a list of 4 bullets of things that we're going to talk about today when you go and see your legislator. A lot of them have been covered by other people who have already done my work for me. The 4 asks summarized are to support the task force.
All right, I just want to stop you guys for a second. I know you all are going to meetings. If you'd like to come back, we're going to put out lunch stuff. So when you're done your meetings, before you go home, there will be lunch stuff out. So good luck with your meetings.
Come back when you're hungry.
Yeah.
We have 4 things that we want. Support for the task force and the extension, which is House Bill 895. Joan talked about the parts of the task force, and I think that's pretty clear that we want a definition of dyslexia, early screening, interventions, professional development, higher ed, accommodations, and funding. That is something that really is important. The other 3 things are the dyslexia guidance, which Marcella talked about. We would like to make sure that every school district, IEP teams, superintendent for that local district, and on down to every teacher in every classroom understands that the dyslexia guidance is there and what it means, and that there are no prohibitions against using the word dyslexia and dyscalculia and dysgraphia in evaluations, eligibility, or in the IEP documents. And Marcella said it very well, and so I'm not going to repeat that. Also, the federal funding opportunities, there are 2, and they are new, and they both are for dyslexia. $2.5 million, like Marcella mentioned, for federal funds under the READ Act, and then $1.5 million for the comprehensive literacy centers under ESSA. Both of those things are pretty revolutionary. It's never happened before. Dyslexia has never been part of any federal legislation, and these both come with funding. And specifically will be very helpful to us to know, to have our legislators understand there's a connection, the federal effort in conjunction with the state effort, and as long as they're not to do anything about it, but they are to be aware that it exists, because it helps them understand that there could be funding coming from somewhere else to help the task force, and that the task force is not working in isolation, but that there is a national effort to create interventions and help for kids who struggle to read and those with dyslexia. The last thing is we would just like everybody to reiterate, if you have time in your meeting, that the new superintendent
for Maryland, we would like that person to have the skills and the understanding of what it means for early reading intervention, and to be more, I think, cognizant of the issues that exist with the reading problems and the gap in our state. And I know that several superintendents in different districts are working on that. And I think Montgomery County is going to be focusing on the gap with their new superintendent. And it's something that I think the state superintendent should be looking at. And when you talk to your delegates and senators, if they can understand that as well, that even though they don't choose the superintendent, the Board of Education does, but they see each other all the time in meetings and around Annapolis, and they can talk about it. So if they have that information, then they can be fully educated. So I know it's time for people to get to their meetings and to go on. I could keep you anymore, but if you have any questions, my name's Laura. You can see me afterwards and ask any questions that you have, that you may have on what to say when you talk to your legislator, or Karleen, Lisa, Mary Ann, and everybody else. But thank you all for being here today.